From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production, the NFL Bet Exchange, hosted by my man, Pop DiBiase, the primetime capper, and the Don of Cape Cod, Jeff Dawson.
What's up, world? It's the one and only Pop DiBiase, the primetime capper, and none other than the Don of Cape Cod himself, Mr. Jeff Dawson, is in the building today. And you guys already know what time it is. This is the NFL Bet Exchange, and this is our part 2 of the NFL preview. You know, the first time we did this, and I know I'll probably say this every week when we do this portion, but the first time me and Jeff did this about 2019 when we were first starting out this show, 2019, 2020, about that time when we were first starting out the NFL Bet Exchange and all that stuff. Well, 2020. And when we were doing the NFL Bet Exchange, me and Jeff actually did a very long preview show. And the preview show went about 3.5 hours, and I could never forget it was live as well, too. So a lot of people was like, damn, y'all still talking? So, you know, it was a fun day. It was a lot of stuff, but the only bad part about that was when we sent it to the editor, he just was like, man, dude, this is going to take me a while. And it literally took him about 2 or 3 days to finish it up. And usually the guy takes about 2 hours to finish up our shows, but that was a long session of things right there. It got so long, I think he even blanked on some of the stuff, man, to be honest with you, dude. So it happens. But, Jeff, how are you today?
I'm doing okay. As I called and put you on speakerphone as I was driving to the office where I needed Noah's Ark again, 2 inches of rain, thunder, lightning, tornado warnings. It just never ends. Mother Nature and the internet still undefeated. We're up, we're running. I muscled through a 1 o'clock show to get to here. Hopefully the internet stays up. Hopefully we can get through this. AFC North, NFC North. You already know my thoughts on the AFC North, and the NFC North will be interesting for sure. But I can't wait, Pops. Blessed and honored to be a part.
Perfect. Man, you guys already know that pretty much we are talking AFC, NFC North today. And pretty much I'm trying to make sure I'm super focused, but I got 75 things happening at once. It's funny. Everybody wants to be busy with me on Friday. Monday through Thursday, you know, I'm sitting up in here. Days are just going the way that they go. But Friday, it's always somebody deadline day. But let's go ahead and jump into it. First team that we're going to talk about is a team that actually kind of took over the headlines during the offseason because they had a guy that was very adamant about getting his money, and he wound up getting his money. And he kind of set a precedent on how contracts were going to be for quarterbacks moving forward. And what he did was he, at one point, was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, you know, after Jalen Hurts got his money. And then all of a sudden, all it did was just set up the Chargers to make sure that they had their offer together. And it's funny. They're the only team that had a guy not even mention the money. That's the Chargers. But let's go ahead and jump into it because we're going to talk about this team right here that is in a make or break season, in my opinion, because if they don't get it right now, they blowing this bad boy up. And that's going to be the Baltimore Ravens. In 2022, the team went 10-7. They made the playoffs again, lost to the rival Bengals in a pretty close competitive game. But once again, they didn't have their starting quarterback, the man himself, Mr. Lamar Jackson. And now Lamar is back. He's added OBJ. He got Zay Flowers, who might be the fantasy wide receiver hot pick for the fantasy owners. Also, you still got Mark Andrews, one of the best tight ends in football. And then you look over on the side. You still have that side, one of the best defenses over the last 25 some odd years in the NFL. And it seems like it just don't stop. And that's still their calling card is their defense. You look at the Ravens and you say to yourself, it's a Super Bowl or bust season. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Well, if I asked you this, if we took this Baltimore Ravens team and put them in the NFC, other than Philadelphia, San Francisco, I'd put them ahead of Dallas. My point is they're in not only the AFC, but in my eyes, the most competitive division, hands down, in the NFL. You hit all the bullet points. Lamar is healthy. Lamar is paid. They add OBJ. They add Zay Flowers. Their backfield started to get me a little nervous. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Bus Edwards, Mark Andrews at tight end, Isaiah Likely, even Kohler at tight end. Their defense, very, very competitive. They've won 24 straight preseason games. Make a break year. Yeah, the natives are getting restless. In one of my shows, I think it was Sports Map Radio this week, I went back to 2013, Pops. They asked me for an early season Super Bowl preview, and I went to 2013. The night the lights went out, and the Ravens and 49ers, I'm very, very, very high on the Ravens. I think they will do very, very well, as well as another team that we'll talk about in a few minutes. But there's nothing I can say bad other than I'm a little nervous right now of the backfield. They go as far as obviously Lamar Jackson takes them. Their defense, the best kicker in the game and probably the best ever with Mr. Justin Tucker. So I think they go past that 10-7. I think they're definitely, I know there's Joe Burrow. I get all that. But I think the Ravens are the team to beat in this division.
You know what? I'm going to have to totally agree with that. And you see that the Ravens are a very good number here, plus 180 on the championship odds. And then their over-under for wins is 10 this year. And that's very doable, very foreseeable, very, very, very good looking. And when you see a team as good as them with a over-under of 10, they usually overachieve in that situation. But the Ravens still, to me, have a ton of pressure on them. Because now Lamar Jackson is going to have a smaller microscope on him, meaning like a bigger, more attention, and it's going to be a smaller amount of patience with Lamar now. You know, every mistake is going to be ridiculed. Every loss is going to be ridiculed. Can he handle that pressure? Because I felt like he was starting to kind of submit to the pressure in these past few years, to be honest with you. And I think that a lot of us figured out that if you can take away certain elements of his game, then that offense becomes really, really stagnant. And that's one thing that they can't be. So hopefully they can go ahead and open up things a little bit better this year with that offense, because I feel like sometimes they turn into one-trick ponies in Baltimore, where we're doing something that's just so predictable. And when they get into that type of trouble, that doesn't bode well for this team. And that's why I said that when you look at them, they have the looks of a Super Bowl team, but at the same time, you say to yourself, they're still a little far off from that hope and dream as well, too, because I just don't feel like their running game is strong enough this year. I know they're going to have Lamar running and everything like that. They got J.K. Dobbins, but I feel like with them, in reality, you have a team that truly is kind of going through the motions of a transition period of how their team is going to look. Now it's not going to be so much about running. You know, they're even talking about turning one of their fullback into an offensive lineman now. And pretty much that's what I'm looking at right now, and seeing that the Ravens are trying to become something that may not be conducive of them being an elite team this year. I don't want to see them be a pass first team. I would much rather see them still be a run first team. But I felt like they didn't invest enough in the run game in the offseason, because J.K. Dobbins, I love the guy, awesome player, had one of the greatest careers you'll ever see at Ohio State, but he's a very injury-prone player, and we all know that. It was even an issue when he was in college. So if you don't have him going and then you have this running back by committee situation, it could prove to be something that can hold your team back, in my opinion.
You know, the difference on this year compared to other years with Baltimore is when you think about the addition of OBJ, you think of the addition of Zay Flowers. We know what Mark Andrews can do and stretch in the field. We haven't even talked about Bateman or Duvernay. And now, can Bateman stay healthy? Can Duvernay? So they're going to open up so many lanes. OBJ crossing the middle of the field. Zay being that water bug. Andrews going straight down the seam. Duvernay or Bateman going to the mailbox. So when Lamar looks past first and then sees these wide open lanes, he's going to be hell on wheels here. And if they win the turnover battle, I know I always say this, but if they win the turnover battle, and listen, think about, they only have to get 2 or 3 first downs, and Tucker's already in potential field goal range. So again, you win games and divisions and titles by scoring touchdowns in the red zone, but it's an automatic 3 at least. As soon as they get to the 40, that's a 57-yarder for the most guys. It's let's go for the first down or even take the penalty and punt. For the Ravens, it's just wheel out Tucker and then let's get the 3 and kick off.
Yep. And see, they're trying to get out that mentality right now because they feel like that's lost them games over the years as well, too. So there's just a lot of things that, the Ravens are going to try to do different because they opened it up. They made sure they signed OBJ. They drafted Zay Flowers in the first round so they can have these receivers for Lamar. And so Lamar can actually sit there and pass the ball now and not just be back there, just ad-libbing. But that's not his style. You can't take that away from him. At the end of the day, he's going to be better with these two ad-libbing. That's the way that you're going to win games with them. But we will see. We will see. I just feel like the Ravens, they paid him so much money that the time for patience is wearing thin. And they have all right to, because you cried for your money. You said that you're worth it. You said that you're going to be the guy. Now you got to be the guy. And my point is he has no more excuses. That's just really what it is. And you have no more excuses. You don't have it to where you don't have receivers. You don't have it to where you don't have certain playmakers there for you. Everything is there for you to succeed. If you can't succeed with this situation, then they might need to change positions.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? So let's move forward. Let's talk about a team. I know he's antsy too. I can see it. You can't wait to talk about him. But you know who's coming up next? It's the Bengals. And the Bengals, 12-4 in 2022. They are the favorite coming into this year as well. They look to be a very, very elite team when you look at the roster. You got Joe Mixon, one of the best running backs in the league. Even though you lost P. Ryan, it's okay because I know they'll have somebody there in place to spell Joe Mixon. Then you got the 3-headed monster at the wide receiver position in Higgins, Boyd, and I know
Chase.
why it's slipping my tongue, but yeah, Chase. But they have Jamar Chase as a 10-1 to win Offensive Player of the Year. A lot of people are jumping all over that, but see, guys like him are guys that I can't trust because they're always having some type of little nagging injury. So people have to understand these guys are uber talented, but you have to be ready for them to miss a month as well too. And a lot of people don't factor that part in because these guys go so hard in the game and they're so talented and so balanced that literally when they get a little bit of a boo-boo, the coaches always get a little scared and don't want to, test the situation too much, because these guys are big-time playmakers. When I look at the Bengals, I see a team that is very reliant on the health of their quarterback at this point. And right now, Joe Burrow is not healthy. He has a strain to his calf, and I know everybody's going to play it down like it's not that big of a deal, but it's going to affect him throughout the first 4 weeks of the season. And that's because he's not on rhythm with his team right now because he hasn't been in training camp. And also it's because when you come back from an injury like that and the way that he plays, he wants to be moving around that pocket a little bit, and it's going to be a little bit of a tough start to the season for him. But with the Bengals, it's okay because the Bengals actually have dealt with the last few seasons starting slow. Nobody wants to admit this, but the Bengals started off 1-3 last year and lost their first 2 games of the season. And nobody even batted an eye. Everybody knew that eventually they're going to cut it on and they're going to be good because Joe Burrow is putting that confidence into everybody. But Joe Burrow this year coming in with an injury already, and he's already a guy that already tore up every single ligament in his leg his rookie season. You have to be kind of skeptical about this team moving forward. And you can't sit up there and just automatically hand them things because I don't know if I don't know if they are one of those teams. I don't trust their coach. And I truly will say this, their defense is kind of a make or break defense. If they lose certain playmakers on that side of the ball, the defense is in trouble. And the defense is really the side of the ball that really kind of keeps them looking really good. But at the same time, too, though, it is the side that makes them overwork in a lot of these games as well, too. So there's a lot of things that you factor in with the Bengals. But if I was to tell you I'm not sold on the Bengals, I would probably get hung in Southern Ohio. But I'm just not sold on the Bengals, in my opinion, when it comes down to it. Reason being is because they got them over under 11.5 wins. They got them with the odds of -105. They're really living off of what happened last season, and the schedule is going to get really tough this year for them. And they're dealing with the toughest division in football. So winning 11.5 games is going to be tough for anybody in this division when they have to play each other twice this year. So what are your thoughts on that?
I just wanted to add one quick thing. We forgot to add the Ravens signed Clowney to a 1-year deal as well. He's not the Clowney from, was it 2014, 15, 16, number 1 pick whenever he was drafted, but they did add him today as well. If this year's, now I was on the Bengals 2 years ago. Remember when Joe was in diapers and me and you used to laugh every week on the Bet Exchange? And 1 quarter away from winning the Super Bowl against your Rams there. This year's Bengals, in the eyes of social media, in the eyes of the so-called experts, is last year's Buffalo Bills. This is the team that everyone's anointing to take down the mighty Kansas City Chiefs. Now, yes, they have weapons. They have Joe Burrow. They have Jamar Chase. They have T. Higgins. They added Herb Smith. They have Joe Mixon. P. Ryan has gone to Denver. Great rookie running back. Keep an eye on him. Late pick in fantasy, Chase Brown. They added him. Defensively, they're better. Now, Joe's already banged up. There are rumors and talks that he might miss the first 2 weeks. He opens up in Cleveland, somewhere that he's never won. In the toughest, most competitive division. I think the 11.5 is set there for a reason. Everyone's going to flock to the over. Listen, I can see 11-6 all day. I can see 10-7 all day. The -105, I think there's a lot better value to shop around. Do I think the Bengals are going to be good? Hell yeah, they are. But they're 1 injury away from being at the middle to the bottom of this year's pack. I'm not buying a division. I would buy the under 11.5 this year. I would go elsewhere. But again, I respect Joe. I respect Jamar, T, and the rest of the offense. One of the better kickers in the game as well. But my money will not be on the Bengals this year.
And I just don't like the fact that they're a -105 in a division that's wide open. It just doesn't make sense to me. But, the Bengals, pretty much they are a team that really, truly does have the glow that you need to have when you're coming into a season fresh off of a close loss in a championship game. But I'm going to be honest with you, Jeff. I never like it when a team plays in a conference championship the year before and they lose a close one like the Bengals did, because the regression is like literally slaps them right in the face week 1. and beyond. You know what I mean? Because they played so well to lose. And you say, don't get too excited about getting back to this because you may never get back to it. You know what I mean? So we'll see. We'll see. I think Cincinnati, there's a lot of prospects, but I think Cincinnati's and Baltimore are at the top of everybody's list when it comes to teams making the AFC Championship, teams winning the Super Bowl, when it comes to future bets. And that's the right way to go, because when you look at rosters and things like that, they have the rosters that say they're possible Super Bowl candidates. And that rings very true. And that's why this division to me is so tough this year, because you don't have a division where anybody's just going to walk in the park and go over the division and just rule over the division. And it's going to be tough. Every home game is going to be pretty much a homecoming game for everybody, and every road game is going to be critical. So it's going to be a tough year in the AFC North. But let's go ahead, and I guess I know people who know me, they probably going to think that I'm homering, but I'm going to let my man start off first with this. I'm going to let Jeff talk first about it, and then I'm going to see what he has to say, and then I'll put my 2 cents in. But none other than the Cleveland Browns, 7-10 last year. Deshaun Watson came in week 12. The Browns were kind of in a playoff position at that point. But you know what? The Browns had already kind of made up their mind that we want to have Deshaun on a full season. And if we make the playoffs, cool. If we miss the playoffs, no worries. Pretty much we got our quarterback of the future. And what they did was they made they created a lot of excitement going into this year with the way that they with the players that they have on the roster. What are your thoughts on Cleveland this year?
I was starting to get lathered up on Cleveland. In our projections in fantasy, Deshaun was one of the sneaky quarterbacks. The addition of Elijah Moore from the Jets. Nick Chubb now has not to worry about Kareem Hunt. He has left the building. They drafted a rookie who's a little nicked up right now, Jerome Ford. Amari Cooper, Njoku. They have a good offense. Everyone's waiting for Deshaun to make the next step. Well, he's not progressing as quick as they thought he was. Another pedestrian week of practices, and the Browns tied the Eagles in a meaningless preseason game last night, 18-18, on 2 missed field goals, by the way. So my point is, I think the Browns are the sexy pick. I really do. And anyone believing in the Browns, I don't have a problem with it. But if I got to put my stake and stance on a team to shock this division, it's coming up.
Oh, and what you got? Shock the division. And I'm over here, I'm messing with nephew right now because I thought he was talking Chiefs, but we had somebody else talking Chiefs. But we're talking AFC North and NFC North. So you guys come on in and talk to us in a few weeks when we talking the West and everything like that, because today it's not about the Chiefs, okay? And I got a little surprise for you when we talk Chiefs as well, too. All right, so wins over under 9.5. This is a lot for the Browns, dude. You know that. And division championship is at 3-1 plus 310. And pretty much the whole situation here for me is like this. The Browns have the team in place. There is no more excuses. There is no way of saying that, oh, we were missing this because we didn't have a quarterback, or we were missing this because we didn't have a wide receiver, or we didn't have a running back. The Browns have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. It's been graded as PFF has seen them as the best offensive line going into this season. And they've been ranked in the top 5 for the last 3 years. And in one of those years, the Browns made the playoffs. So now you have a quarterback that the whole city can trust. That was the biggest problem, that Baker couldn't be trusted by the city. He was trusted by the organization. It's just the city has to have say into the situation as well, too. And that's the biggest downfall of the Browns and the same thing goes for the Raiders. It's where you have too many mouthy fans. They already want to cut the kicker, and the kicker made 3 kicks last night, but he missed the most important one, the one to win the game last night. So, yeah, we got to cut him because he was drafted in the 6th round, and he's not hitting kicks like Justin Tucker. Hey, you know what? I saw Janikowski come to the league, and Janikowski missed his first 6 field goals in the NFL. And then the field goal that he hit was a 59-yard game winner in Kansas City. We all looked up and said, we'll be fine. Because now you guys start to realize kicking a field goal might be one of the toughest things that you'll do in life ever. So, kind of back it up just a little bit, because if you can't kick the ball 50 yards down the field, then you can't really talk. That's the whole thing. So I feel that the Browns are on the brink, but you can't sit here and get so excited about potential. It's been like this for the last 5 years with the Browns. But that just goes to show you that they have a coach in place that is geared towards winning. It's crazy that Stefanski actually has been the longest tenured coach in the Cleveland Browns return history. Think about that, Jeff. He's probably the longest tenured coach since Romeo Crennel. And he's won more games than Romeo Crennel as well, too. Romeo Crennel got to stick around because Romeo was just a great leader of men. But the biggest problem is that they had an egotistical general manager in Savage, and they had a silly owner in Lerner. So it could never work. But if you would have gave us Romeo about another 2 or 3 years, the Browns could have probably been a very successful team because they built a foundation. You know what I mean? And I feel like with Stefanski, they finally been able to build a foundation. So that's why the expectations are right where they need to be at. And the Browns, that they too are in a make or break season, in my opinion, because the Haslams have spent the money. They spent money on Chubb. They spent money on Cooper. They spent money on Watson to ensure that this team can get to the playoffs and be a viable Super Bowl contender. And it all happens with the defense stepping it up, in my opinion. The defense has to be the calling card this year. The offense, you can't rely on them to be great. You have to rely on the defense to be your calling card, because when you have a great running game like the Browns do, then the defense needs to be the star of the show. And I feel like that's what has to happen for the Browns to really take the next step. Your defense has to be top 10, not top 15, not top 20, not bottom 32, top 10, Jeff, top 10. And I'm not talking about at 10. I'm talking about 5, 6, 7, where every week that, hey, this might be a tough game. And the Browns showed a little bit of that last night with some pretty hungry players. They got safeties last night. They had 3 sacks in the first half. So there's a lot of things to be excited about if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. But you also, as a Cleveland Browns fan, you also have a lot to worry about. So that's just another year with the Browns. But all in all, they're 1-1-1 in the preseason, and they played 3 very impressive games. And I'm telling you right now, Deshaun, you better watch your back, because DTR, the city's fallen in love with them, and the guy has shown that these scouts don't know ish about scouting no damn quarterback position. I'm telling you now. It's hard to pass up on a guy that started 41 games, Jeff, in college, for a guy that maybe started 6. But he got all the physical attributes. So, somebody told us he could be like Mahomes, and that's we going to just run with that. Bad mojo. I said, for every Patrick Mahomes, there's Josh Freeman.
Oh, yeah.
Same exact person, same exact player. Just one had a 30-year-old coach. The other one had a 65-year-old coach.
Amen.
But let's any last words on the Browns before we move to
No,
the
I mean, the number set at 9.5 versus an 11.5. Again, they want you to bet the under here. If the Browns are going to succeed, I can see them going over. I can see them winning the division. I just not seeing it now. The progression that I needed to see from Watson, all the pieces, as you said, are in place. Maybe it's a 2-2 start. Maybe that's what it is. Do they upset Cincinnati, which is now down to close to a pick 'em? I think they're going to beat Cincinnati, to be honest with you, week 1. Do they build off of that? Do they come out of the gates 3-1? The pieces are there. The over 9.5 is there. The plus 310 is there. I'm just going to put my flag. Listen, I think the Ravens win the division, gun to head. I do. But I'm going to shock the world in about 2 minutes.
All right. I like it. And you know what? I can see, and once again, I can see Jeff's getting a little antsy. I'm going to let him kick this one off. The Pittsburgh Steelers, another above 500 season. They missed the playoffs, but they worked themselves into a winning record after being they had a bad start to the season. It was an atrocious start to the season. And everybody was like, well, Pittsburgh, they drafted in the top 5 for the first time in 50 years. And that didn't happen because Mike Tomlin is not a quitter and he's not a loser. And so pretty much he was able to rally the troops. And didn't I say every single week on NFL Bet Exchange, y'all got to stop sleeping on Tomlin. And this was the last 7 weeks of the season when they had already wrote Pittsburgh off. And I said, no, this guy's going to start running the table and the Steelers are going to start getting some ugly wins. And that's exactly what happened. And pretty much they finish up 9-8 after beating the Browns the final game of the season. But this year, a lot of people are still not taking the Steelers seriously because they don't believe Kenny Pickens is the guy. And I think that Kenny Pickens, all he did was improve, and improve some more. And you know what? The guy had 2 concussions last year and still was able to get better as the season went along. Unlike another guy we know that was down south. So, pretty much, but that's funny though. Kenny Pickett didn't get nobody feeling bad for him and his concussions, but Tua had a whole Save the Wells Foundation. Really just, they literally, it was almost damn near an NFL protest about what happened to Tua. But I think that everything happens for a reason. And I think that when it comes down to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Najee Harris has to be the focal point of that offense. And then everything else falls in line after that. He's going to be exactly what Christian McCaffrey is to the 49ers, to me. And that's what's going to be the X factor and the defining point of this team having a really good season, in my opinion, Jeff. And I'm seeing it right now with the Steelers that they have it set up to where they are a over under of 8.5 and then a 5-1 on division championship odds. And I think that this might be one of the best odds that you can get for a division champion, for a team that's getting overlooked. And wins and losses and wins this year over under 8.5. And this is pretty high from where I'm at, because they have some places that have the Steelers at 6.5 this year. Why are they expecting the Steelers to be a top 15 drafting team next year? That's absolutely out the picture for me. I think that the Steelers are going to be a team that's going to be competitive once again, and they're going to be a team that's going to spoil somebody's season just like they do every year. And watch out for George Pickens. That's an absolute Pro Bowler right there. Your thoughts, though. Go ahead. I'm going to let you take the stage on the Steelers.
Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. Now, again, this could be the egg on face. We'll come back to this in November or December. I mean, the numbers are set up for egg on the face. I mean, he's never had a losing season, so therefore he's going to be 9-8 at worst. So there you go. You get your over there. 5-1 is an absolute joke. Pickett, I'm not calling him Ben Roethlisberger, but I can see him making the next step forward. Pickens is emerging. 149 looks last year to Deontay Johnson. Those drops, bad throws, whatever you want to call them, the catch rate is only going to increase. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, Pat Frymouth. They draft the tight end from Georgia, Darnell Washington. And I'll say this right now. They probably, if healthy, they go as far as Watt. If Watt can stay healthy and play 15, 16 games, have the best defense in this division. And I said it, that's over the Ravens. So my point is, this is value, and more value. I think that they, on paper, have a team that, as you said, goes as far as Najee Harris. Listen, is he going to be Le'Veon Bell this year? I know he wasn't the Najee Harris we thought he was. I just think the next year, the emergence of Pickett, to Pickens, to Deontay Johnson, to Frymouth, with a division, with a defense that's only getting better. This is, to me, the shocker of all. I would not be shocked to see these guys at 11-6 winning this division. I'll take the 5-1. I'll take the over 8.5. We'll address this the first of every month, but this is the steal of the century, no pun intended.
Hey, you know what? In the moment I saw a 5-1 on the Steelers over under 8.5, I said they trying to make you give up on the Steelers. They're trying to sell this idea that the Steelers are going to regress, and that's not even the case. Because when we really look at and we rate quarterbacks in this division, Kenny Pickett could be the number one quarterback in the division at the end of the year. Kenny Pickett showed a lot of traits of being a very, very serviceable quarterback in this league for a very long time. And let's not forget, he was the best quarterback coming into the draft, his draft year. Yeah, it was a down year for quarterbacks, but y'all just did that because he went to Pittsburgh and he was in the ACC. If he would have been an Ohio State guy, UCLA guy, it would be a big deal. But he wasn't. He went to Pitt. And I said, him going to Pitt should really get you even more excited, because guess who else went to Pitt? Dan Marino. And what the Steelers are doing is they made up for not drafting Dan Marino. So you guys have to understand, it's a real movie getting written in Pittsburgh now. Y'all thought they loved Ben. They're going to really love Kenny, because Kenny's a hometown kid. It's different. It's not a guy that just was a miracle quarterback for you. This guy is actually one of you. So it is what it is. You know what I mean? So pretty much there that is. And let's go ahead, take our first commercial break. When we get back, it's time to talk about the NFC. I know that we got to wake up Chicago right now. So all my Chicago people that are watching the show, you up first. And, be ready. Be ready. But all in all, though, this is the NFL Bet Exchange. I'm your host. Well, one of your hosts. It's not all about me. But it's one